Supplies. You're going to need fabric, scissors, seam gauge, optional pins, but definitely a sewing machine. The first step is the trickiest because we're going to sew it wrong sides together. So that means our seam is going to be visible from the outside. But don't let this bother you because by the end, it will be on the inside and not showing. If you prefer to sew with pins, just go ahead and pin the fabric together. Remember, we are doing it wrong sides together. Let me explain the seam gauge. After you get the hang of this seam, you probably won't even need the seam gauge. But in the beginning, it just helps. Normal seam allowances are 5/8. Well, we're going to stitch a 3/8 seam. So I used the seam gauge and marked it so that you can just see the line. Using a contrasting thread, I stitched the seam at 3/8. I went by my sewing machine, which was accurate, and it looks like I was a little bit off using my seam gauge. I also backstitched at the beginning and end of my seam. Bring your project to the ironing board and press the seam open. It doesn't have to be perfect, just flat and pretty open. I prefer to press my seam back flat for this next step, but you don't have to do it. It is your choice because it's kind of counterintuitive, I guess. Why did we press it open and now we're pressing it flat again? But it's just me. I like it. For the next step, we're going to be trimming the seam allowance to 1/8. Right now it's at 3/8, but we're going to do a 1/8, which is barely above the stitching line. Take your scissors and trim above the stitching line. Not too far away that you still have a bunch of fabric creating the bulk there, but not too close that you clip the seam because that would be very bad. So just right above it with your scissors. It's not too difficult. Look at that beautiful tiny seam allowance. Now let's open it back up, iron the tiny seam allowance down, and kind of try to get it sort of flat. It doesn't have to be like stuck, glued almost to the fabric, just to give it a little bit more shaping to lay the whichever way you want it to. Now we're going to take the ends of our fabric and bring them together. Did you notice what happened when we brought the edges of the fabric together? That seam that we made was enclosed between the right sides of the fabric. That might not make sense to you now, but it will. If you prefer, go ahead and pin the corners of the raw edge together. Press the folded edge to give it a nice crease. Now this is opposite of where we put the pins just a moment ago. This is where we just pressed. You see that beautiful seam? This is the wrong side of the work. So that's going to be on the inside, up against your skin or the inside of your bag, whatever. But the 8-inch seam is going to be enclosed in there. It's just perfect. Grabbing my handy dandy seam gauge, I'm going to be showing you the next step. We're going to be stitching a 2/8 seam, or 1/4, on the wrong sides of the work. So let me mark that. So I'm marking a 2/8, and I'm going to mark a 1/8. So you can see that 1/8, that top line is where our raw edge is, but it's going to be enclosed by our new seam that we're going to be stitching. It's going to be great. I'm back from stitching my 2/8 or 1/4 seam allowance. Now open it up. Remember, this is the right side of the fabric. This is what the public is going to see. Once we open that up, look at that beautiful seam we have going straight down. But on the inside, we don't have any raw edge showing. They're enclosed, so the fabric isn't going to ravel. We are finished with our project. The only thing we need to do is press one more time, just to bring that level of professionalism up another notch. So press the seam open, because this is a different seam now, remember. And then on the inside, whichever way the pattern tells you to press the seam, whether it's to the center or down, do that. This piece of fabric has been sitting in my scrap basket, or else you need to press those wrinkles out too, just to make it look so much better, because I'm honestly cringing right now that my fabric is this wrinkly. And that's how you sew one of my favorite techniques, the French seam. I hope this helps you on your projects. Thanks for watching.